naman ako nung nagsibag, sila din. Hindi lang naman ako yung ginawa yung lahat, pero sila din.
Robredo makes sure to meet with her volunteers in Sorsogon and Albay before attending the Grand Rally in Naga City. She's no stranger to thousands of supporters showing up and braving the scorching heat or heavy downpour at her rallies. She says she gave it her all, and she's leaving everything to God. The presidential aspirant also can't help but hit those who insist that she cheated in the 2016 elections, including Marcos, despite a unanimous ruling by the Presidential Electoral Tribunal that she won and beat him fair and square.
So parang wala nang redemption. Talagang ang sinungaling sa umpisa, sinungaling hanggang kahuli-hulihan. Kawawa yung mga Pilipinong napapapaniwala niyo.
Pia, as of 5 in the afternoon, the crowd for the Lenny Kiko rally in Naga City has reached 168,000. That's according to the organizers that just relayed to us a while ago. And there is a separate meeting, the Avance, tomorrow in Makati, where we do expect thousands of supporters from all over Metro Manila and nearby provinces to attend as a last show of force before they vote on Monday. Pia?
Anjo Alimario there reporting. From a vote-rich region to the #1 vote-rich province, Senator Manny Pacquiao wraps up the Visayas leg of his campaign with a meeting the Avance in Cebu. We now have our Cian Arcangel live. Cian, how confident is Pacquiao in clinching the Visayan vote?
Pia, the People's Champ is banking on its Visayan connection and rags to riches story to win the presidency. His past 2 weeks have been busy. The senator blitzed through a number of provinces in the Visayas and Mindanao, speaking the local language, Bisaya. Pacquiao is holding the first of 2 meeting the Avance or Grand Rallies here in Cebu City at the same venue where rival Isko Moreno held a campaign rally on Wednesday. Supporters continue to arrive here at the North Reclamation area. Most of the people are packed near the stage, but there are still empty spaces near where we are standing. Pacquiao says the crowd turnout boosts his belief of victory.
Diyan mo makikita ang tunay na survey sa ilalim. No, yung damang-dama ng mga mahihirap na tao, damang-dama ng mga nahihirapan ng mga pamilya, ang aking advokasya. Gusto naming pasabukas na lang, tabi ng mga tao, hintayin namin kahit na umabot pa ng madaling araw. So, natouch naman ako na itong ginawa nilang support sa akin.
Pacquiao will conclude his campaign with a meeting the Avance in his hometown of General Santos City. His running mate, Buhay Party List Congressman Lito Atienza, is expected to give a video message because he cannot yet travel after undergoing knee surgery. Pia?
Cian, what did Manny Pacquiao say about a COMELEC decision that the PDP Laban faction led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi is the legitimate one?
Pia, Senator Manny Pacquiao says they will appeal the COMELEC's decision all the way to the Supreme Court. But he assures the PDP Laban members who are loyal to him of his support. But with the campaign coming to a close, Pacquiao says he is leaving it up to Senator Coco Pimentel to decide on their next move. Pimentel, whose father and namesake founded PDP Laban, has said that the COMELEC's decision is not yet final and executory. Back to you, Pia.
Cian Arcangel there reporting. Presidential candidate Ping Lacson and running mate Tito Soto are holding their meeting the Avance in the vote-rich province of Cavite. We have George Cahilas there on standby. George, what is the latest?
Well, the presidential candidate Ping Lacson says this will be the last election participating. Win or lose, Lacson said he is ready to accept his fate. Now, should he win, he says he is off in his competence, his experience, his track record to serve for another 6 years. If not, he's going to embrace the peace and quiet for his family while far from the political spotlight. Here in Carmona, Cavite, supporters of the Lacson-Soto tandem have filled the Vernon Square for their meeting the Avance. Joining them tonight are senatorial candidates Nikita Padilla, Manny Piñol, Guillermo Eliazar, JV Ejercito, and Ringo Nasan. Lacson says they chose Cavite for their closing rally to show his gratitude to his fellow Caviteños who are still supporting their tandem despite failing to get the endorsement of majority of politicians here. The presidential candidate laments that the politicians in Cavite, some of whom are his friends and relatives, forgot that he is one of their own and one that they can be proud of in terms of qualifications and competence. Cavite Governor John Victorino supports the candidacy of Bongbong Marcos, while other political parties or political families like the Barzagas of Dasmariñas City supports Vice President Leni Robredo. Lacson and his running mate, Senate President Tito Soto, are unfazed by their low survey numbers, saying that the real or the true survey result will be determined on Monday. Back to you, Pia.
George Cahilas there reporting. Well, candidates are going all out on the last day of the campaign season tomorrow. Presidential hopeful Bongbong Marcos will be in Parañaque City to cap off his three-day meeting de avance. He took on Iloilo on Tuesday and Tagum City in Davao del Norte on Wednesday. Leni Robredo will gather supporters in her last grand rally along Ayala Avenue in Makati at 5 in the afternoon tomorrow. Manny Pacquiao returning to his hometown in General Santos City, where he will make a final pitch to supporters. Isko Moreno will also go back to Tondo, Manila, where he began as a public servant. The Manila mayor will end his campaign at the Moriones Linear Park tomorrow. Moreno's running mate, Willie Ong, and Senate slate held an event this afternoon in Pasig City, a bailiwick of one of the prominent members of the Acción Democrático, the electionist Mayor Vico Soto. But Moreno was not present, saying he had to attend to last-minute meetings as mayor. Moreno and Soto have not met since the start of the campaign. Soto will mark the end of his campaign at Plaza Rizal in Pasig City tomorrow evening. The Education Department urges voters to head to voting precincts as early as possible on May 9th, as delays are expected with the observance of COVID-19 protocols. Tristan Adalo gives us a look at preparations at some schools in the most vote-rich city.
Some 20,000 voters are expected at Culiat Elementary School on Tandang Sora Avenue on May 9th, the second largest polling precinct in Quezon City's 6th district. 26 classrooms will be utilized on Election Day, with only 10 voters allowed per classroom at any given time.
Ang lahat ng ating mga electoral boards, mga support staff, ay handang-handa na po sila. Ang pumilik nagbigay po ng kagamitan para sa pag-disinfect, alcohol, scanner.
Isolation and emergency assistance rooms have been set up to cater to those who are showing COVID-19 symptoms, as well as the elderly and persons with disabilities.
Maaaring mabagal po ito dahil nga sa pila. Actually, ang nararanasan natin dati na wala pa yung pandemic, sa umaga kasi karamihan nagpuntahan. Pero sa bandang hapon naman, medyo pa unti-unti na yung mga dumarating na tao.
The vote counting machines assigned in the school have been tested and sealed, but election paraphernalia, particularly ballots and the official list of voters, will be given this weekend.
Yung walang mga sasakyan, nagpaalam ako sa punong guro na dito na lamang sila matulog. Kasi kailangan 5 o'clock, nakahanda na.
The Education Department advises voters to arrive early in their designated polling precincts.
Talagang mahabaan ang pila ang i-expect natin dito. We would try really to impose strictly the health protocols of 1 meter distance. Yan yung kailangan natin isagawa talaga, lalong-lalo na sa urban places like Metro Manila. Mahirap yun. Alam naman natin.
The Commission on Elections, on the other hand, remind voters to check their ballots carefully before voting.
Ballots are not very easily replaced on election day. The voter has to prove na hindi niya kasalanan na kailangan na palitan yung balota.
The poll body adds that the 7 p.m. deadline can be extended if there's a need to accommodate more voters. The COMELEC expects over 80% voter turnout this year. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
Fewer Filipinos were jobless in March as more businesses reopened under the lowest alert level. The Philippine Statistics Authority says the unemployment rate dropped to 5.8% from 6.4% in February. This is the lowest since the record high 17.6% at the height of the pandemic in April 2020. But Underemployment went up with over 7.4 million Filipinos seeking more work to increase their income. More stories when we return here on Newsnight. It is official. The faction led by Energy Chief Al Cusi is the legitimate wing of the ruling party PDP Laban. And award-winning singer Taylor Swift ruling the charts again with a re-recording of her track This Love from the album 1989. Stay with us here on CNN Philippines.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, basic to ating to. Let's all vote mga kapatid po, PG Party List. PG stands for basic goods sa balota 108. Kabuhayan pag-asenso para sa lahat. This is our goal and our advocacy. PG Party List for you and me. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, basic to ating to. Pagkaisa ng mahig ang mga hinaing. Young and active leaders sa Kongreso ang boses natin. Tandaan at iboto balota 108 to build and realize the projects we dreamed of. PG Party List, vote 108 na. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, basic to atin to. PG Party List, atin to.
This is a paid advertisement paid for by Donnie Q. Tampan, 599 Narciso Street, Surigao City.
Welcome back. One presidential candidate is confident about winning as he accuses survey firms of being paid hacks, while his running mate endorses different presidential and vice presidential bets. Chrissy Di Matulak has the highlights of the COMELEC and the Kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas Forum with Jose Montemayor and Rizalito David, as well as Senator Manny Pacquiao.
As the lone presidential candidate who is a doctor, Jose Montemayor vows that if he gets elected, he will increase healthcare capacity and salary for healthcare workers. Montemayor highlighted his credentials as a medical practitioner when asked on how he can improve the health sector during the final round of the COMELEC KBP Pilipinas Forum 2022.
I-increase natin yung capacity ng ating mga hospitals. I-increase natin yung capacity ng ating healthcare workers. Itaas natin ang sweldo. No, bigyan natin talaga ng living wage ang ating mga healthcare workers.
Montemayor adds that there should be more well-compensated health workers in the provinces. He also called some COVID-19 measures, including long lockdowns, unnecessary. Despite lagging behind surveys, he remains confident he'll win, contending that some survey firms are paid. Montemayor is joined by his running mate Rizalito David, who oddly is endorsing other candidates.
Diretso ko na pong ini-endorso, tulungan natin si Leni Robredo at si Senator Soto sa ikalawang Pangulo.
Presidential candidate Senator Manny Pacquiao joined the second leg of the forum. He says if elected, he wants to entice more foreign investors through simpler business processes.
Ang gagawin natin, isa na lang o dalawang requirements na lang para magnegosyo sila. Tutulungan pa sila ng ating gobyerno. Hindi na sila pahihirapan. Kaya talagang makakainganyo tayo ng mga investors from other country. At sinisigurado ko sa inyo na pag tayo naging Pangulo, at least 5 mga bilyonaryo sa ibang bansa makapag-invest dito sa ating.
Pacquiao also aims to raise the minimum wage to 700 pesos and create a salary standardization law which will provide the same earnings to workers in Metro Manila and the provinces. He also wants better management in the education department after receiving allegations of corruption in the agency.
Ang laki ng budget niyan at kayang-kaya mabigyan ng gadget ang lahat ng ating mga estudyante, hindi lang estudyante, pati yung mga guro natin. Alam ko po ang mga nangyayari dyan sa DepEd. No, alam ko yan, kaya ayaw ko lang ibulgar ngayon.
If he becomes president, Pacquiao says he will keep his campaign promise of ridding the government of corruption and put dishonest officials behind bars. Chrissy de Matulak, CNN Philippines.
After 8 long months, the Commission on Elections settles a squabble within the ruling party, PDP Laban, and names the faction of Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi as the legitimate wing. In a 2-1 vote, COMELEC's Special Second Division said the Cusi wing is the legitimate faction because its chairman, President Duterte, convened and attended its assemblies last year. COMELEC named Cusi as the legitimate party president and former Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles as the executive vice president. Now, this means the PDP Laban poll watchers will be prioritized inside voting centers. They are also entitled to the 5th copy of election returns in every precinct, which will be printed by vote counting machines once polls close on May 9th. The poll body did not recognize the meetings and party officials of the rival wing led by Senators Manny Pacquiao and Coco Pimentel. Pimentel plans to file an appeal before the COMELEC en banc. He also slammed the timing of the release of the decision, suspecting it is a boost for the candidacies of Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte, whom the Cusi wing earlier endorsed. Pimentel says supporting the son of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos is, quote, the total antithesis of what PDP Laban stands for. The party was established in 1982 to oppose the Marcos dictatorship. The Cusi wing invited Pimentel to a dialogue and told him, quote, to take a step back and not to be emotional. Well, as we count down to May 9, what are the do's and don'ts voters should remember? Melissa Lopez has the details, from what we should bring and wear to how we should protect our ballots.
The Commission on Elections says preparations to vote on May 9th start at home. Commissioners say voters should do their research early and make a list of chosen candidates to speed up the voting process. Although smartphones are allowed inside the precinct, it's best to write down the names of candidates on a piece of paper. Sample ballots are also allowed. If possible, you should visit the COMELEC's Precinct Finder page to know where you are voting. You should also write down the precinct number. Now, what should you wear? Commissioner George Garcia says any color is accepted, even those identified with the campaigns. But do not wear shirts or even masks bearing the names or faces of candidates to the voting center.
Mas maganda po wag na lang pong magsusuot ng ganon. Pero yung kulay, it doesn't really matter. Basta dapat may damit, kaysa naman yung walang damit, sure, hindi makakapasok. Bawal na po ang pangangampanya sa Mayo 9. Simula po nga ng Mayo 8, bawal na po ang campaigning.
You may head to the precinct anytime from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. You should also wear a face mask. An ID is not required, but the poll body says it's good to have one ready in case someone questions your identity. At the precinct, make sure to use the COMELEC's official marking pen when shading the ballot. Do not use a regular pen as its pointy edge might pierce through the ballot and invalidate your vote. COMELEC's stern reminder, do not take photos or selfies with your ballot and of the voter's receipt. Pack some patience as lines could be long. Precincts can only accommodate up to 10 voters at a time for social distancing.
Sa amin pong estima, kapag po kayo ay may dala po kayong kodigo, Mga 3 to 5 minutes lang po tapos kayo sa pagboto. Mas maganda po mapadali natin din yung pagboto natin at mapadali rin yung pag-alis natin sa polling place dahil nga sa banta ng COVID-19.
Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
Get the numbers and updates in real time on Election Day. Our full coverage of the May 9 polls begins at 5 in the morning. We invite you to join the conversation on our social media accounts at CNN Philippines. Philippine Coast Guard commissions its biggest flagship vessel yet. Amor Santos gives us a look at the new BRP Teresa Magbanwa.
This is BRP Teresa Magbanwa, the newest and biggest flagship vessel of the Philippine Coast Guard. And it's now ready to patrol the country's waters, including the West Philippine Sea.
97 meters long, with speeds of up to 24 knots. The Coast Guard says this multi-role response vessel from Japan can endure no less than 4,000 nautical miles. In a ceremony on Friday, it was officially named BRP Teresa Magbanwa after the Filipino hero who fought colonizers in the 1890s. One of her descendants, Angeles Magbanwa Alaba, attended the event.
Simply it can be said, total package so ito. Ito na po yung karagdagan sa modernization program ng Philippine Coast Guard. Patibayin at gamitin natin ang Teresa Magbanwa upang sa ganon makatulong at mamayagpag ang ating mandato na i-garantiyan yung seguridad at humanitarian activities ng Philippine Coast Guard.
Its first mission,
una sa deployment na nasa isip namin is to send the vessel to the upcoming marine pollution exercise in Indonesia from north to south and east to west. Practically the entire archipelago, dyan natin siya i-deploy, including the West Philippine Sea.
The Philippines has filed dozens of diplomatic protests against China's incursions in the West Philippine Sea. The most recent was over a close-distance maneuvering of a China Coast Guard ship toward the Philippine vessel off Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal in March.
The bigger the vessel, the better. Marinero tayo eh. So mas malaki yung barko natin ngayon, mas mahaba yung panahon na itatagal niya sa dagat, and capability niya to handle sea condition, mas maayos. And at par na tayo sa malalaking barko ng mga kaibigan natin sa neighboring countries natin. Kailangan natin mas marami na ganitong klase ng barko.
A similar vessel is arriving in the first week of June. Together, the two acquisitions are worth around 7 billion pesos, procured through a loan from Japan.
The commissioning of BRP Teresa Magbanwa embodies the strong commitment of our two governments to maintain maritime orders under UNCLOS. It also further strengthen the friendly relations between Japan and the Philippines.
The Philippines and Japan are both at odds with China over its sweeping claims in the East and South China Seas. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
Straight ahead, a treat for Swifties and fans of the best-selling novel, The Summer I Turned Pretty. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Welcome back. In UAAP men's basketball, LaSalle and UP's do-or-die semis match has begun at the Mall of Asia Arena. The Green Archers are bringing their A game, leading in the first quarter 18-11. Whoever 13. What is it? 13? 18-13. Now, whoever wins faces the Blue Eagles in the finals on Sunday, 4 p.m., also at the MOA Arena. And just in, Team Philippines captures its first win in the 2021 Southeast Asian Games in Vietnam, beating 2019 silver medalist Thailand in beach handball in 2 sets. Now, here's a treat for both Swifties and fans of a best-selling novel, The Summer I Turned Pretty. In the trailer for the series adaptation, Taylor Swift debuted the re-recording for track This Love. The release coincides with Swift's 1989 World Tour, which kicked off on this day 7 years ago. Here's a look at the trailer for The Summer I Turned Pretty. The show drops on Amazon Prime Video June 17th. And that is it for now. Join me again on news.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pio Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
For many of us, we communicate with each other through our voice. Think about how much you talk every day, at home, at work, or even when you're on the phone. We spend so much time using our voice, but spend very little time caring for it. This is why most of us have experienced a raspy or strained voice at some point. It's especially prevalent among voice professionals like performers, call center agents, teachers, as well as reporters, but it can happen to anyone. On the program today, we'll talk about ways to care for your voice, the different voice problems that you may encounter, and how best to treat them. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk right here on CNN Philippines. Your voice plays a vital role in your everyday life, but it's easy to take for granted. Our guests are here today to give us some tips on how to help keep our voices strong and healthy. With us is Dr. Enrique Papa II, who is an ENT specialist at UniHealth Parañaque Hospital and Medical Center, as well as Hospital ng Maynila. Also with us is Zarina Camille Lazaro. She's a speech-language pathologist from St. Luke's Global City and an instructor of speech pathology at UP Manila. All of us, even from the time we were born, second only to gaining that first breath, gumamit na tayo ng boses natin when we cried, ano? But a lot of us take it for granted, hindi natin inaalagaan. Dr. Enrique, pag-usapan natin, how exactly do we produce sound that eventually becomes our voice, and why is it so distinct? Parang itong fingerprint ng mga tao, iba-ibang mga boses ng tao.
Well, basically for us to produce voice, we need 3 things, no? First is the power supply, which is the air coming from the lungs. Second is the sound source, which is our larynx, which contains our vocal cords. And third is the resonator, which includes our oral cavity, the nasopharynx, and the sinuses. So basically, for us to produce sounds, the air coming from the lungs is the one that produces the power behind the voice production. The air moves up and down the trachea or the windpipe, thus producing vibration of the vocal cords. The vibration of the vocal cords then tends to produce the sound, which then resonates in our sinuses, oral cavity, or the pharynx, thus shaping and amplifying the sounds. And with the use of our soft palate, the tongue, the mouth, the lips, we then transform these sounds into speech and articulation.
Let's focus on that part where the vocal cords are situated at, no, yung larynx area natin. That's why I'd like to ask Ms. Zarina, ano yung mga ginagawa nating mga Filipinos on a regular basis na nakakapag-compromise ng quality ng voice natin?
Madami po iba-iba kasing causes on why we would have changes in our voice. Pwede rin po kasi yung mga acute na phonotrauma, which are like shouting for a long period of time, using our voice in an abusive manner, like excessive coughing or excessive throat clearing. Even din po yung mga stress that we experience at work, they may also lead to additional tensions in our neck area, which could compromise our voice.
Ms. Zarina, all of those that you mentioned, maybe some acute things, panandalian lang. Are there instances that Filipinos do for long periods of time that in the long run, makakasasama talaga ng boses?
I think Filipinos may have the tendency to talk excessively. I think it's in our culture po kasi na talaga mahilig po tayo makipagkwentuhan, makipag-usap. It's not really a problem per se, but if we talk using an improper voice or hindi po mag-ayos yung technique na ating pakikipag-usap with other people, in the long run, it may lead to voice problem.
One of the most common symptom or mararamdaman ng isang tao na may problema sa kanilang boses ay ang hoarseness. Could you explain to us what hoarseness is and what's usually the area involved when someone is hoarse?
So basically, hoarseness is a symptom of dysphonia. Dysphonia is basically a diagnosis of any changes or alteration in voice production. When we say hoarseness naman, it's basically a symptom for any change in voice quality, pitch, or loudness. Both can either be neurologic, obstructive, iatrogenic, or and most likely secondary to functional, such as vocal abuse.
How much of an impact can certain things that a person does, especially smoking and drinking of alcohol, how big of a factor is this when it comes to someone's voice?
Tobacco smoking can lead to progressive damage in the lining of the mucosa of our vocal cords. Also, smoking tends to lead to an increased mucus production, causing changes in the quality of the voice. Smoking can also predispose the patient with an increased risk of minute hemorrhages or yung mga maliliit na pagdudugo sa vocal cords, secondary to changes in pressure and circulation. And over time, of course, smoking and alcohol can lead to development of tumors or laryngeal cancers.
Now, Ms. Zarina, meron bang connection ang stress level ng isang tao sa quality ng boses niya?
Yes po, there has been research that under periods of stress, the muscles that control the larynx become excessively tense, and periods of prolonged muscle tension in the larynx can lead to incoordination of the muscles that control our voice.
So may connection talaga ang ating stress levels and the quality of our voice. But in some occasions, hoarseness can also signify a serious medical condition. We'll talk more about that when we return. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, basic tools. Ating to, let's vote mga kapatid po. PG Party List, PG stands for basic goods sa balota 108. Kabuhayan pag-asenso para sa lahat. This is our goal and our advocacy. PG Party List for you and me. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, basic tools. Ating to, pagkaisa ng mahig ang mga hinaing. leaders sa Kongreso ang boses natin. Tandaan at iboto balota 108 to build and realize the projects we dreamed of. PG Party List, vote 108 na. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. PG Party List, kasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, basic good, atin to. PG Party List, atin to.
This is a paid advertisement paid for by Donnie Q Tampan, 599 Narciso Street, Surigao City.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Now, losing one's voice is a symptom, as discussed earlier, but there may be several underlying reasons. A vocally demanding job or the common cold is sometimes usually to blame. If this is the case, your voice should be restored within a couple of days, but sometimes it could signify something more serious. Dr. Enrique, pag-usapan natin ang mga possible causes from something like laryngitis, for instance, as a cause for hoarseness or the loss of someone's voice. What are some of the main causes ng laryngitis, and how can this be better managed by our viewers?
When we say laryngitis, it's basically an inflammation or irritation of the larynx causing dysphonia. It could either be acute, lasting for 2 weeks, or chronic, lasting for more than 2 weeks. Here in the Philippines, because of the advent of the BPO industry, the most common cause of laryngitis is vocal abuse. Other causes would include your respiratory tract infections, such as cough and colds, infections such as TB, and also reflux or gastroesophageal reflux disease.
In case, Dr. Enrique, nakapag-voice rest na ang ating mga viewers, but the persistence of hoarseness is still there. Garalgal ang boses niya, very raspy. Is there something probably in their vocal cords that could warrant a checkup with their ENT?
First things first, it's very important that we provide a thorough history and physical examination in any patients who is hoarse or namamalat. It is important for us to ask for history of infection, vocal abuse, trauma, or previous surgery in the neck. In the clinics, the voice can be assessed by having the patient read on a certain text or paragraph and grade the quality of the voice according to scale. It is also very important that we take note about the timing and duration of hoarseness. Because for us ENTs, any hoarseness or pamamalat ng boses that is lasting for more than 2 weeks warrants further examination such as laryngoscopy.
Is there any instance, Dr. Enrique, na ang pagiging raspy ng boses ng isang tao, normal lang to? Kumbaga part of his character na paos ang kanyang boses, buong buhay na nilang meron silang paos na boses, or should this warrant a checkup? What I'm trying to refer to is, should they be concerned of anything such as maybe a polyp, maybe a cyst, or maybe a nodule?
Basically, if the patient has the same quality of the voice ever since, it is important that we take note of other diseases, maybe anatomic variations in the length or width of the vocal cords. But we must also rule out other causes such as lesions, nodules, cysts, and sometimes masses in the larynx.
You also mentioned some infections, Dr. Enrique, and one of that which is prevalent here in the Philippines is TB. Pwede rin bang, a lot of our viewers know TB as affecting the lungs, pwede rin bang maapektuhan ng vocal cords ang TB?
Yes, because we have what we call your TB laryngitis, because sometimes the infection or the TB cells, the TB bacilli, would actually go through the trachea and infect the vocal cords, causing ulcerations on the mucosa or lining of your vocal cords.
Now let's talk about voice used as a livelihood by a lot of people, and these are call center agents, professional singers, public speakers, teachers. Marami talagang trabaho that rely on their voice as their ways of livelihood. Ms. Zarina, pag-usapan naman natin yun. What is it about the voice care of some, let's put for example, professional singers who are able to sing in a concert night after night, tuloy-tuloy na buo pa rin ang boses, maganda pa rin ang boses, very very healthy, But some people probably partied too hard the night before, the next day, wala na yung boses nila. What type of mannerisms, maybe healthcare practices, should our viewers know about para ma-maintain ang magandang quality ng voice?
With regards to the frequency of drinking water, it should be, I would recommend to my patients to drink at least every hour. And then for the specific case that you've mentioned, singers are professionally trained, so it's really about vocal technique.
Okay.
So they may tend to avoid caffeinated beverages or alcohol. However, if you do drink those kinds of beverages, it would be better for you to balance the intake with water.
When it comes to our voice, a lot of us have been speaking all our lives, but meron bang tama at maling paraan ng pagsasalita?
There is actually, but it's really personalized from person to person. But my general tips would be to monitor your breathing, make sure that you have air support for everything that you say. Try not to speak at every end of your breath. So make sure that you try to breathe if ever you tend to speak for long periods of time. Also, try to monitor the pitch of your voice since we're not really conscious about yung tono nga po ng ating mga boses. We may tend to speak at the higher end of our voice range or at the lower end of your voice range. So it's up to us to find what our optimal pitch is.
Okay, but Ms. Zarina, Dr. Enrique talked about kung yung power source ng ating voice, which is the air from our lungs. Where should most of that power be coming from? For a sustained voice use, especially those who, for let's say call center agents, it may be hard at first, but where should that power be coming from? The neck muscles, maybe from the diaphragm? Saan ba, Ms. Zarina, ang magandang paraan para mag-vocalize or gumamit ng boses?
It should be from the diaphragm actually, or more commonly, mas monitor po natin siya sa ating bandang tiyan kasi dun malapit po ang ating diaphragm. You will know if you're breathing in an improper way. If you see neck tensions over here, nakikita niyo na po yung muscles niyan. Pero another good way for you to ensure that you're breathing through your diaphragm is to sit in a proper posture. If possible, try to maintain a straight posture whenever you're sitting or standing. So understandable na po na for right now, in our context, majority of the people are working from home. So if makita niyo po na may environmental modifications kayo magagawa, like the height of your table, the height of your chair, it would still be beneficial in the long term.
Later on the show, we'll share some tips with you on how to properly exercise your voice to be healthy as well as powerful. Your health is our mission here on MedTalk Health Talk. We'll be right back.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. We're talking about today about your very valuable voice. We'll talk about some voice hygiene and your overall vocal health. Dr. Enrique, what should our viewers do in order to maintain their voice, avoid any of these problems? Should regular checkups with the ENT be part of their list?
Well, yes, no, especially for professionals who use their voice frequently, no, at least once a month or anytime if they feel there's a problem or throat discomfort. Because it is very important that we determine the cause of their hoarseness or pamamalat as early as possible.
When it comes to losing someone's voice, a lot of our viewers may have tried some home remedies here and there. Are there any home remedies to your knowledge na alam niyong medyo may effect din naman?
Treatment lang naman, no, for any patients with with hoarseness or pamamalat is basically to lubricate the throat and voice rest. Some patients would try to drink lemon water or turmeric, and sometimes naglalagay sila ng parang luya sa dila, nagsisipsip sila. There's no basically proof that it works, but if they give them comfort, then why not? But again, it is still essential that they do the voice rest and increase their oral fluid.
One of the more serious ailments of vocal cord is that of vocal cord cancer. When it comes to vocal cord cancer, we have to be serious about this, Dr. Enrique, because how can our viewers be very wary about this? What are some of the telltale signs that should prompt them to seek checkups?
Number one, if namamalat ka or namamaos ka, that is progressive and lasting for more than 2 weeks, you warrant already a laryngoscopy. If you find lesions such as nodules or cysts, then we surgically remove that and send it to biopsy. On physical examination, madali namang mag-check if mukhang cancer or mukhang pre-malignant yung lesion. So pag ganun, we do biopsy and we treat it accordingly, either through surgery or radiotherapy or both. The very important thing to remember is that if hindi bumabalik ang boses ninyo ng mahigit 2 linggo.
Now, Ms. Zarina, when it comes to exercising our voice, meron bang mga exercises na makaka-benefit sa power or sa sustainability ng boses sa isang tao? I'm sure aspiring professional singers, maybe call center agents would benefit from anything that will strengthen their voice.
First off, when relaxation, it's really important to maintain a relaxed voice in order to produce a good voice. So some examples of relaxation exercises are just simple stretching of the neck. Yung mga ginagawa po natin pa nag-warm up during workouts, like yung pag-stretch ng neck downward, upward, and even to the sides. You could also do a couple of breathing exercises in order for you to monitor if you're applying diaphragmatic breathing. So you could put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach and just inhale and exhale and monitor if mas gumagalaw ba yun sa stomach mo, which indicates that you're applying more diaphragmatic breathing, and monitoring if there are any tensions in your neck to indicate if hindi ba efficient yung breathing pattern ninyo. You could also actually search on YouTube some vocal warm-ups. A lot of my patients find lip trills very easy to do since they follow those videos on YouTube, and I recommend that they do those lip trills before a vocally demanding task.
And with that, I'd like to thank ENT specialist Dr. Enrique Papa II and speech pathologist Ms. Zarina Lazaro for sharing with us your very valuable insights. We learned a lot from you both today, very important information with regards to our voice. Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.